if you would care to share, can you elaborate on what made you think you were enlightened and how your meditation has changed, deepened in the years since that 30-day hiatus? Yeah, I can tell you. I was experiencing a period of heightened emotionalism. And that's important to remember. I was experiencing a period of heightened emotionalism. Basically, let's say this is around, I kind of feel it was the 6th or 7th year, because it was after I had been ordained to teach. And at that time, I lived on a 10-acre or 13-acre farm with a log cabin. It was beautiful. I loved that place. It's very much, I mean, I used to have dreams about returning to that place and wanting to buy that house, but we were renting it. We were renting it for very cheap. But it turns out I ended up back in West Virginia anyway with a place very similar to that, so it worked out. But I was up in the garden, and it was early in the morning. I had meditated, and I was a massage therapist at the time, so I knew I had some clients that day, but I had some time in the morning. So I worked in the garden, and then I used to just like to sit up on the hill and just sit in the sunshine and meditate. And on this particular day, I was working in the garden, and all of a sudden, this joy just came over me. And you all know me well enough to know that I can laugh, and I am relatively a joyful person, but most of the time I'm kind of grumpy. But this joy came over me. And it stayed. And it stayed for a few days, and then it stayed for a few more days, and it kept staying there. And so I assumed to myself, oh, well, this must be it, because nothing was bothering me. I was just cruising through life. And I thought, finally, the Kriya practices have worked. I am enlightened. It's only been 7 years. Wonderful. That's not too long. And so I just would wake up in the morning, and I'd go sit on the hill, or I'd work in the garden, or I'd play some music, or I'd make some meals, or I'd go to work, and it just stayed that way. And so I met with Roy, and I said, I've done it. You know, I'm enlightened. And he just looked at me, and he just said, well, you know, even Lahiri Mahasaya kept meditating after he was enlightened. And I sort of stepped back for a minute. I thought, what are you talking about? And then he just kind of looked at me, and then he just went off on another topic. So he didn't dwell on it. He didn't make me feel stupid. He didn't, lecture me about anything at all. He just made that statement, changed gears, and then that stuck in my mind, and I thought, oh, okay. Maybe he's sharing something that I'm not aware of. And that is the danger, that is the difficulty of walking the path without a mentor or a guide. Because imagine, and I'm sure you've seen lots of them on YouTube if you happen to be a YouTube scroller, imagine someone who has that experience, and now they run around talking about spirituality like they know what they're talking about. Now at that time, I knew enough about spirituality that yes, I could have still taught you how to meditate well, and I could have said a few interesting, helpful things about the Bhagavad Gita and Yoga Sutras. But if I had just stayed there, I would have missed a lot. And so how has your meditation changed and deepened in 30 years since that 30-day hiatus? I can't even describe it. And I think that's the beauty of the path, is that even just when I think, wow, there can't be a realization beyond this, I give it a few years. And sure enough, there's another one. And to some, I think that might be, what's the word? I think they might not like it because they think, well, geez, when is it going to end? But there comes a point where when you start having understanding and realization about things, and it's so beautiful, and you see it happen a few times, well, then you really are looking forward to the next one. And so probably around that time, I was doing a lot of technique. Meaning I was sitting down, I was cranking out the alternate nostril breathing, I'd get out my mala beads, and I'd do 1,080 of some mantra, and then I'd do as many kriyas as I could. I was really technique oriented. And then I'd sit down, and all I would do is I would read the Bhagavad Gita and the Yoga Sutras, and just to get it in my mind, I'd read it again and again. But I wasn't actively, well, I shouldn't say that. The difference between that and now is that now when I meditate, whereas before I would spend an hour and a half really pushing the techniques, now I spend about 15 minutes in techniques and an hour and 15 minutes in a space, like in the experience of it. So it's become more of a dynamic experience. And when I read the Yoga Sutras or the Bhagavad Gita, I'm not just reading it because I know I should read it and I need to get it in my mind, and if I just read it enough, it'll make sense. Now I read it, and it's like it speaks to me. It's like I will read a passage or I will read a phrase, and it's like I'm having a conversation with something greater than myself. And there were stages from that time. So from that period that I thought I was enlightened, it wasn't like there was one stage and that was it. After that, I would go a few years and I would have a stage of realization, and then another stage of realization. And for me, after my late wife Melissa passed, and then shortly after Roy passed, that was a profound shift in realization. And that was during my Sati period. So we talked about the Sati period. So that's why I speak of the Sati period, if you can try to hold on and see it that way, as a profoundly cleansing process. Because it was after I had gone through that process that, for example, that phrase, the yogi is meant to endure pleasure and pain while seeking knowledge. If I had just stuck with the 30-day period of being enlightenment, I would be stuck on the pleasure. And the thing that you learn as you go is that pleasure and pain, they're just two sides of the same coin, and there's something else more important than that. And that is what if you can stick with it, that's what you realize. That's what you find out. That's something else that is more important than pleasure and pain. And it's okay if you want to chase pleasure for a while. I mean, there are plenty of spiritual pleasures. And the good thing about most of those spiritual pleasures is that as long as you've got a good guide along the way who can keep you anchored and centered, those spiritual pleasures leave a light within your consciousness which helps you to eventually see the thing, the other thing that's beyond pleasure and pain. So keep going. Always keep going. Always keep going. And Mr. Davis would say that whenever people would ask him, well, how do you know when you're done? And he would say, once you reach a particular stage or a particular plateau of experience, always inquire, well, what is beyond even this? What is beyond even this? You just wonder about it, be curious about it. You don't know what it is. Just like right now, what I'm trying to describe about that thing which is beyond pleasure and pain, you might not have any idea what that is. Some of you might. But if you don't, if you think, well, I just want things to be good in my life, you don't have any concept of what the third thing is. But if you're always just contemplating, well, what could he be talking about? What is beyond even this great spiritual pleasure I experience? You'll get it. You'll find it. You'll stumble over it. You'll fall into it.